Hello guys, welcome back to another video. This is Sane here, and we're actually going to be doing a tutorial on how to get the max settings and performance for Gran Turismo 2 A-Spec on DuckStation. I gotta say, I'm very impressed not only with the mod team, which shout out to them for actually giving us this wonderful A-Spec mod, but also too with the fact that how Reshade connects very well with the inner settings of DuckStation. I'm going to be showing you guys briefly on how to really get the most out of DuckStation to the best of its abilities. Because I spent a little bit of time here and there trying to perfect the graphic work, the detail, scenery, anything possible really to make the game look as gorgeous as this right now. So before we actually get into the video, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and make sure you guys look at the other Gran Turismo projects I actually done previously. I know that it was a bit ago, but obviously you'll see it on the screen, or you'll probably see it within my channel as well too. But let's get started. So I'm going to walk you guys through the settings that you guys are going to use for the game. This is very important if you want to get the best performance and max performance out of the game. So the first thing we're going to go to is console. Now for console, we're going to simply enable cheats because that's going to be part of our enhancements, or at least needed for this particular tutorial. And then we're going to enable the clock speed, set it to 416. You can set it to a little bit higher. I know some people that play Gran Turismo 2, they have it set to 500 or so. I think it's completely unnecessary because the game is only going to be running in 60 FPS. But I have it at 416 because of the detail, the graphics, the cars, the geometric calling and everything. So I just leave it at 416. Again, it's up to you. You could put it higher, but I don't see a purpose of doing that since it really only runs at 60 frames per second. In terms of the CD-ROM, you leave it at 8 sectors. And basically, for some people who don't really know so much about, the read ahead, right? It just reduces the hitches reading and decompressing CD data, so that way it just wouldn't cause any spikes or so forth. So you're not gonna have to really worry about that if you switch it to, for example, from 8 sectors to 2, or maybe even disabling it, because for some games you always want to really run the red head separately, because you don't necessarily want to add it as a general function and then you mess up one of your games and you wonder why it doesn't load that well. So I just keep that stuff separate, but I would really leave this to default. That's recommendation. And that's just pretty much about it for console. For emulation, we would put optimal frame pacing instead of skip duplicate frame display, or keeping both of those options on, because the thing about it is optimal frame pacing is a G-Sync FreeSync function, and the reason why it works very well with the 60F patches, or at least some of the 60F patches for PS1 emulation, is because when it comes down to Gran Turismo 2 specifically, it really works well to see the detail, because remember, when you unlock the FPS for certain games, you just have better detail of the map, you have better detail of the roads, the cars, scenery, so forth. So this works very well with Gran Turismo 2's settings that I have for this game, as well as the cheat manager, which we'll go into when we actually boot up the game, of course. And in terms of skip duplicate frame display or any other particular setting, just leave that off, because skip duplicate frame display, I only really keep that on for games like Ridge Racer Type 4, because Ridge Racer Type 4 is one of those games where it doesn't have, the highest it goes up to is 37 FPS with the CPU all the way to max. It's not a game that was ever created to be 60 FPS, maybe in the arcades at the time, but we don't necessarily have the arcade edition of Ridge Racer. That's kind of Ridge Racer Turbo, but we'll just only leave that option on here for emulation. And then More importantly, so for graphics, we would put it up to 9x 4K. We will leave downsampling disabled due to the fact that we want the image quality for the majority of the 3D games to be better. I know some people say put it to adaptive smooth or adaptive preserve and so forth. I just leave it disabled because, you know, with the cheats, it already makes the game, cars and everything, you know, just every point of detail within the game look very smooth just with, you know, the enhancements. So there's really no point of putting that on, at least to me. You could put it on if you want to, but if my best recommendation is to put it to adaptive just to get like the smoothness of it, or you could just have it to box, which is smooth all, but I leave that disabled. Texture filtering to linear, and this setting here, right, the texture filtering, the sprite texture filtering. So I explained this in the Ridge Racer video. For some games, XBR is so good because you're not only getting the colors, and you're not necessarily only getting the scenery and just the overall graphical work of the game to be looking crispy, but you're also really getting that, you know, beautiful 3D texturing and HUD. It's just everything in general. So it just smooths out the game so well with the right settings, and with having XBR on and you have a great build, like a great PC build, it just makes the game so much better looking. So I'm just gonna leave it to that. I mean, of course you could leave it to whatever texture filtering, but specifically this is gonna be for Gran Turismo. Aspect ratio, stretch to fill, because, you know, in the cheats manager you already have 16:9 or 21:9, so, you know, stretch to fill would be the best option. Adaptive fast mad, leave that as it is. Crop over scan area, and scaling to linear smooth. Now the bottom is what I really want to talk about, and the reason why I feel that it's very important to have these options on along with the ones in advance and PGXP, right? So all these options that I have on, make sure you guys have it on, and keep off these two, because all of these options together with the cheats, and I believe, you know, the settings that you would have, because you're already enabling the game to run at 60 FPS, right? According to like the cheats and the CPU overclock, right? So having these particular settings on just really enhances the color, it enhances the display, it enhances the point of detail, it enhances the graphics. It just makes everything work so fucking well. And I believe that you'll see a drastic difference. I don't think you will have it looking like the way I have it, because the only reason why I have this on, and I'll go right into it when I go into advanced, is because, you know, I have reshade in Duck Station. I know some people are like, why are you doing that? But I like my games looking very clean, and the reason why I have reshade is because I only have really two settings on. Solaris, which it brightens and adds HDR, and maybe probably preservation correction. I believe that's what it's called. But going into advanced, so true coloring, the banding, and true coloring rendering, when you have those two on, and let's say for example you have reshade and you have Solaris, what it really does is it adds more reflection to the cars. Not that, you know, you would really need that, because of course you would necessarily get that already with chroma smoothing on and geometry correction, of course, but you just see it a little bit more if you had my settings for reshade on, whereas like the reflection detail would be seen a little bit more. It would be a little bit more viable, a little bit more visible. So having those two on, you see the true color, number one, and number two, you'll see the detail at hand as well. So, you know, make sure you guys have that setting on. And then the only two settings I have on for PGXP is preserve projection precision, and then calling correction. no need to add any other a particular one, because if you put on perspective correct colors, it kind of ruins the other two settings in rendering in advance, at least in my opinion. But that's about it. No other settings to really work around. So let's get into the game. And now, as you can see, with all the settings on, we're actually playing Gran Turismo 2, and you can tell the difference right away. I don't know if you guys can, but as you can see, it really makes the game look so smooth. Aside from my reshade settings, which if you want it, or you want me to recommend you the best settings for a reshade for DuckStation, I could give it to you. But even without reshade, the game works very well, and it actually adds that true texture, that true coloring, that true detail to map, cars, and so forth. And I gotta say, I'm in love with the Gran Turismo series. I play Gran Turismo 1, 2, and 3, and just having these settings for at least Gran Turismo 1 and 2 is just, it looks flawless, you know. I will recommend, though, that if you are going to use these settings, make sure, at least preferably, that you would really try to work around the texture filtering, or at least see which settings fit you, because I know some people, they're not necessarily a big fan of changing those texture filtering settings for a lot of reasons, and that's fine, because most of the time you don't really get a good not a response time, but you don't get really good frame pacing, or at least frames as well as detail, because some people's builds are not really great for running emulation on max performance and so forth. So I hope that you guys actually enjoyed this video. If you guys would give this video a like, and if you have any questions about anything related to any particular retro games on DuckStation or PCSX2, make sure you guys hit up the Discord. I'll put the link in the description. I'll also put the link in the description for Reshade as well too. This is Saiyan signing off, and I hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday. Peace out.